the news that everyone's super sick of hearing for the last 2 years. I'm sick of repeating it every time I come on this show, but it just gets crazier and more dumb every week. So there's been multiple cities burning and multiple things happening, but I think the one most charred is the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. If you remember, during the George Floyd riots, that made national television because people were burning down historic businesses, Black-owned businesses, in predominantly Black areas. So tell me how that shows Black Lives Matter. I don't know. So if someone can enlighten me in the comments, I'd be interested in hearing.
We could call Stacey Abrams. Maybe she could tell us.
Yeah. So now they just kind of put in a final nail in the coffin on the Twin Cities, which is absolutely devastating because I remember being like 15 and going down there 16 years old and walking around Minneapolis and taking Instagram photos with my friends. And now I'm like 21 and when I go home and visit my parents, like, you are not allowed to go into Minneapolis under any circumstances because the whole thing has radically changed. Carjackings are up. Well, now we have even more of a reason not to go down there because the two mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul implemented this vaccine mandate. And so they said that in order to go into a restaurant, a diner, or anything like that, that you had to either show proof of vaccination or you had to show a negative COVID test that was officially taken like by a medical third party, like within the last 72 hours, which is incredible considering that it takes usually about 2 days for those tests to turn around. But the thing that just doesn't make sense, which multiple people have pointed out, is that if you're vaccinated, and at this point we know that you can still be vaccinated and have COVID-19 and spread it, that those people can go in and dine, potentially COVID positive, but someone who's unvaccinated and clearly doesn't have COVID can't dine at all. So it's really just come down to this whole idea of Dr. Seuss's Sneetches Upon the Beaches with green stars and whatever. It's like, you can't roast marshmallows at our bonfire, get out. And so it's just so stupid. Well, I was very impressed because I was scrolling on Facebook yesterday and I didn't see a single comment from Minnesota saying that they supported this. Every single comment was negative about it. And a bunch of small businesses and executives in Minnesota came out and had a few choice words to say. And I kind of stopped reading quotes in recent episodes, but this is worth it. So this is from the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association director, Tony Chazik. He said, "We understand the seriousness of COVID and the public health for community, patrons, and employees. The hospitality industry has complied with all of the mandates, regulations, and more for COVID, but it's hard to understand a vaccination mandate that's unjustified and unscientific. It targets just one industry after zero science or data driving the decision. There's zero care for our dedicated frontline workers who will now have to add enforcement agents to their plates. And the only scientific thing we know is that it has devastated the hospitality industry and other cities with similar mandates." So then he continues and he says, "They say we're all in this together, but this mandate shows that even the hospitality industry is clearly being targeted alone. We know that both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals can spread the virus, and it happens at schools, workout facilities, other retailers, sporting events, and more." So people are publicly starting to say what we all been saying for a long time.
Yeah, for 2 years.
And I think it's really interesting because like if this were to go on 2 years ago, people like businesses were dancing around it, like, oh, we want to care about public health. So
there was so much less known. There was so much
ago. There was so much less known.
Now we know.
So my question is, because we know so much more and apparently the government doesn't, why do the mandates seem to be getting so much stronger?
You take that?
Control. It's a control issue. And one of the hardest things for government to control is business, and particularly small private entities. Your Main Street economy is basically the hardest thing to control, especially in cities. That is the key to an urban development and economy. But it's also at the same time, it's key, but it's also uncontrollable. And so I think it's like, easy way to control this and, bring it under city governance and even, moving up the chain up to federal government is to, do vaccine mandates. I mean, look at everyone just has to look at the model of New York. I mean, New York has all the vaccine mandates. They're operating like this. They've been operating like this for well over a year. And it's really clear to see what the game is and also what the outcome is in New York. So 2.0 in Minneapolis.